Reed. Thank you for joining me. If you're unfamiliar with SCORE, SCORE is a small business nonprofit where we provide one-on-one small business mentoring and we do small business workshops just like this one. And we also help out nonprofits as well, not only here in the state of Maine, but across the country. And today I'm here to talk about market research and finding your best customers. We're really looking to drill down and dive into how it is that we can reach our best or reach the folks who are most likely to connect with our message and most likely to connect with what we're doing with our business, and take that next step or that next action down the marketing funnel. I want to say thank you to the Maine Technology Institute, which is a huge supporter of SCORE and is a sponsor for this workshop. And we will go over a little bit about our goals here today. So really, we're going to kind of talk about market research and we're going to talk about marketing. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about what market research is, how to do it a little bit, how to do your own what they would call primary research, or kind of put together your own information based on your interactions with customers or the folks in your business. And then we're going to talk about how we can apply that information to what you might normally do in your marketing cycle. We're going to talk about how that applies through ideal customers and developing an ideal customer profile, and then how we can use the information on that ideal customer profile in things like, for example, when you're doing a Facebook ad and you want to put $20 or $30 behind a Facebook post, how do I limit who's going to see that post? So it's the folks who are most likely to make a buying decision when that post goes out, and the people who are most likely to click on it are the most likely to purchase it. That also can kind of go the other direction. And, let's say you're hoping to partner with an organization and you want to make sure that your audience has good crossover with their audience so that you're really speaking to the core of the folks who are going to take something away from that and come and be an audience member of yours, for example. And really how we do that is we want to try to break down at a very high level what we're trying to do here. We're trying to communicate with people. We're trying to connect with people, and we're trying to connect with specifically customers or members of our audience. And those two things are not always the same. Just because someone likes your Facebook page or might engage with you on a regular basis doesn't mean that they might purchase something from you or engage with your business. But that doesn't mean that that always is the case. You might be able to convert that person into a customer over time through more engagement. A lot of times when you hear people in marketing talk about that, what they're talking about is the number of touch points. And you'll hear people talk about anywhere from 7 to 10 touch points to convert someone to a customer. What they're really talking about is how many interactions do you have to have and how many different kinds of interactions do you have to have for them to trust you enough to kind of take that next step. And there are multiple different ways you can kind of categorize your audiences to get to that end goal. And really what you're looking for is a way that you can think about people and how far they are down what you would call a marketing funnel. And a marketing funnel is really at the top of the funnel is where they enter and they learn about your business. And the closer they get down the funnel, the more Facebook posts they see, the longer in the video that they watch before they make a buying decision. The more they go down that funnel and the more they see themselves using the product, or they see the value of the product and want to buy something. And really what we're doing with marketing is we're trying to push people down that funnel in different ways. And what we're doing with market research is we're trying to identify who are the right people to push down that funnel and how do we do that effectively. So one way that I like to kind of describe it is people who are in your orbit or they're out of your orbit, or people who are like really brand evangelists or really brand loyalists. A really good way to think about that is Apple is a great example of that. There are a lot of people who are really hardcore Apple and iPhone fans. That's all they use. They use a Mac, they use an Apple, or they use an iPhone. And then there are a lot of folks who will never work for them. So that's a really good defining difference between people who are in your orbit and people who are brand loyalists, or people who might be on the outside of the orbit, or folks who might have an iPhone, but they don't necessarily use an Apple computer or an iPad, but they just have had an iPhone for a long time, so they're used to it. And you have a chance to get them to go further down that funnel by purchasing something like a laptop that is integrated into the same system that the iPhone uses. So every audience and everyone at different stages in that funnel and is a different audience type, and those different audience types respond differently to marketing messages based on the information they have about your business and how much they know about how much that information can help them or your product can help them. And the best way to do that is you have to really know your business. You have to know your business not only from inside, and I'm sure for a lot of small business owners thinking, well, know your business, that's all I do is my business. You have to understand your business from the outside as well. So how does your business look and how do people understand your business if they know nothing about it? If they know nothing about the industry you're in, even like how do they understand and see your business from a handful of social media posts or maybe that rack card that you put on a rack somewhere, a poster that you hung up? And there are different ways to kind of categorize this, but it really kind of comes down to do you sell to other businesses or do you sell to the public at large? If you sell to other businesses, you're business to business. If you sell to the public in general, you're more business to customer, business to consumer. And that's really going to then be defined by what are you selling? Is it a product? Is it a specific thing someone can buy and hold in their hands, or is it more of an experience that they might go and do, or is it a service that they have done for them? And when they make those kinds of purchases, usually people don't make purchases in isolation or they don't do anything in isolation. It usually has other things that are related to that. A good example of what that might look like is when you go to the farmer's market, you usually don't go to just one booth, you go to multiple different booths there. So that's not a single purchase in isolation. In the marketing that each one of those individual booths do is beneficial marketing for everyone else at the farmer's market because it puts you in a position to go and see what those other folks are selling. So really what you want to look at is how is your business being conveyed, not only through the lens of how you put your business out there, but other organizations, how other people put your business out there when people write reviews. And how do you respond to those things? So how do you respond to the reviews that are written about you? Are you responding to that specific person, or are you responding to the 50 people who are going to read that interaction after you make that post and after that review's posted? Those are all different considerations that you're going to want to keep in mind when you're doing marketing. So, and the best way to then utilize that once you start thinking about your business from outside of yourself and outside of your business is start thinking about your customer from outside of yourself and outside of your business, and start thinking about your customer from inside of yourself and inside of your business. So you want to understand like your customers and who your best customers are. A lot of entrepreneurs will think that their product or service is good for anyone. And in some cases, that may be true. My first business was a home cleaning business. And I can tell you just about everyone wishes that they had someone to come and help clean up around the house. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that service is the right fit for everyone. And especially where we're located here in Maine, where it's more of, I was in a coastal area at the time. So the housing in that area was a lot more seasonal. So I had to work on more of a seasonal cycle and I had to work with folks on a seasonal schedule. So knowing your customer and the customer base that's available to you is critical in understanding how your business is going to function and how people are going to interact with your business. And who those best customers are going to be the folks who are going to make you realistically the most amount of money with the least amount of time and investment on your end and leave with the biggest and best experience possible. So there really is a sweet spot in there amongst all of the people who might purchase your product of people who are going to get the most use out of it and the most value out of it. And those are the folks that we want to try to target the most when we do our marketing. So we want to know things like where they spend their time, when they're in the right mindset to make a purchase, what are they thinking about the thing that you do so that it's relevant to them. And on top of that, how much contact is too much? How many, like, I know that there are a lot of people who send me emails where I've gotten way too many emails from them. And even if they have the perfect service for me, I'm probably not going to buy it because I just heard from them way too much and I just don't want to deal with it. That's something else that you want to keep in mind as well. So we'll go through just an example here. And this example is going to be a yoga studio in Biddeford. We want to offer yoga classes and exercise space. So really what we're looking to create here is kind of a third space for our community. So let's look at this from the two lenses that we talked about, know our business and know our customer. So we want to know our business. What are we providing with this yoga studio? Well, it's not only a service in that you're providing yoga classes in a literal sense, it's also an experience in that we're trying to provide a community and a community, a sense of space for a community to exist in. With that being the case, that means we're more business to customer rather than business to business. That's not to say that a yoga studio couldn't be business to business. There are a lot of things like corporate retreats that will host yoga classes where that's a totally valid business model. But in this case, we're probably going to be more business to customer. What are other businesses do that are in your field? So it's really popular for other yoga studios to do social media. That's really common. Who do I know in my personal life that I think would be a great customer for our yoga studio? So if I try to think about someone I know, Hmm. Pardon me. I try to think about someone I know in my personal life. Who can I ask a few questions about to try to get into the mindset of someone who might attend a yoga studio that they've never been to before? So in my instance, I have a friend named Abby who's a really good fit for that. So we want to know our customer. In a lot of ways, when you do market research, that gets broken down into two categories. You have things like demographics, and these are considered like hard characteristics. So these are things like age, gender, where you live. And then you have what are considered soft characteristics, and those are personal preferences or goals or personal motivations that you might have, or just things that you might like. An example of how that might work out in our yoga studio is, maybe our friend Abby always gets an iced coffee before going into her yoga classes that she goes into on a regular basis. That gives us one of those things in the psychographic category that we can identify, and that also lets us know that maybe coffee companies are a good example of a business that we might want to work with in the future for a possible crossover because they might have a similar audience to us. So we'll write out an ideal customer profile with that information. So this is an example ideal customer profile. It's just a one pager. It has some of the demographic stuff on the top, some of the psychographic stuff on the bottom. And this is just something you could fill out in like a 10 to 15-minute interview or over coffee with someone who you've identified for your business as a good fit, who'd be willing to sit down with you and kind of talk about it. And we're not trying to really get to the source of why they might buy your product. That's in many ways is supposed to be self-evident in them being a good fit. We're trying to get to the source of just kind of who they are as a person, just trying to learn a little bit about them, learn a little bit about why it's a good fit more so than how it's a good fit, if that makes sense. And this can be reasonably simple or as complex as you need. This is an example of kind of a more in-depth one, where I have demographics on the left, psychographics on the right, and I delved a little deeper into each one of those things with my friend Abby for our yoga studio example. So this really kind of comes down to understanding your orbit. Uh, the more of the qualities that you're going to have on your ideal customer profile, the more likely they're going to be in that like brand loyalist or brand evangelist category. The more likely they are to do things like forward an email from you to one of their friends if they find it interesting, or like something on social media, for example. And the less of those qualities that they share, if it's a well-developed profile, they're less likely to do things like share that social media post, send out an email, or even dropping in to say hello into your business. That doesn't mean that there are folks who won't do that. It's just more what's more likely. So we're kind of trying to play the average here, if that makes sense. And that really kind of comes down to speaking to your audience. We're trying to speak to the average common denominator amongst our ideal customers. So when you're marketing, you want to be aware of that audience in particular, but that there are all of those other audiences as well that you're trying to speak to. So for example, when you're telling an inside joke that you know the folks who are brand loyalists are going to get, you can don't feel bad about explaining it later in the post, just so those folks who are trying to get into that inside joke category or that inside joke level of following and engagement are able to feel like they're still welcome. And You can do that by encouraging people to move up your audience lists by doing things like, hey, we have a newsletter. Feel free to subscribe to the newsletter and check it out, or like our social media page and send it to your friends if this is something you find interesting. A lot of times, some folks can feel like that's a little pushy, but that reminder can be very helpful for people, and we call that a call to action in the marketing world. We see them all the time. And as I mentioned earlier, I felt like it was worth putting as a bullet point in this slide. But when you're responding to reviews, it's really important to remember that really you're responding to the 50 people who are going to read that review later. You're not necessarily responding to that person in the moment. So try to always respond to reviews with that in mind. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's a whole bunch of information that's not really telling us what platform is going to be really helpful, right? In a lot of ways, that kind of comes down to an analysis of your business. And that's really going to come down to what your business is. And that's why we're using an example today. Because our example for our yoga studio is probably going to be different for different reasons, or maybe the same for different reasons than your business. And really, what you want to do is try to envision, does it make sense for my brand to be on this platform? Does it make sense for the message that I'm putting out there to be in the space where people are in this space where people are engaging in a certain kind of way? And our example for that is going to be, whoops, in a few slides. We'll go back to those other slides. But our example for that is Instagram and LinkedIn. If we're going to create an Instagram or a LinkedIn profile, one or the other, for our yoga studio example, in a lot of ways, it makes a lot more sense for us to do Instagram. It's a younger audience it's more image focused and it's more focused on your personal life rather than your professional life. And those are all things that are going to be more likely to hit our ideal customer profile. So the audience that we're looking for is going to be more likely to be on Instagram. And the time in which they're going to be thinking about something like what yoga studio they want to attend is going to be when they're on Instagram more so than when they're engaging with LinkedIn. And in a lot of ways, the data that you have available to you will help you pick the right platform. If you do more traditional advertising like radio or television, having an ideal customer profile is really good for your underwriter who can look at it and get an idea for what programming is going to be best for the ad that you want to put out there, for example. But that goes for many things. Like, if you're hanging up flyers, you want to put them in a place where you think the folks that are most likely to take them are going to walk by. And it also gets into, how much you're willing to spend to do your marketing. So having a good ideal customer profile is going to make your organic marketing much better. And your organic marketing is things like posting on Facebook and social media. Uh, it's not necessarily required to have an amazing understanding of your ideal customer, but it certainly helps to grow it much faster if you do. And it's best for a longer term strategy. If you're looking for shorter term results and you're really looking for a quick turnaround, maybe you're doing a product launch and you really need to make sure the word gets out there, or you're starting your business and you really want to have a good grand opening. Paid platforms aren't the worst way to go. You get instant reach. So when you're posting on social media, for example, you're only going to reach the folks, or you're most likely only going to reach the folks who have already liked your page or engaged with your page. When you're doing a paid reach, you're going to reach outside of your reach, and you're going to be able to really narrow down specific people that you're going to want to target. Not down to the individual level, but we'll get into it a little bit later, how an ideal customer profile can help with that kind of targeting. And realistically, a good marketing strategy is likely to use both. So co-marketing, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but co-marketing is when you're collaborating with another business or organization on a shared goal. And this is a phenomenal way for you to grow your audience by exposing your built audience to another business so that you can then get access to their built audience. And really what you're doing here is you're sharing trust. So your audience trusts you, and they trust that you're going to partner with a business that shares your ideals or shares the same goals that you're trying to achieve, and that it's a good brand partnership so that your audience can trust that other business and that other business's audience can trust you. And that can take form in a couple of different ways. I have a few examples here. One of them is actually using yoga. But Lucky Pigeon Brewing in Biddeford hosted a yoga class before they opened on Sundays. So Lucky Pigeon's ideal customer profile includes people who are health conscious because they're a gluten-free brewery. So that same thing overlaps with folks who are health conscious and participate in yoga. So they had a little bit of an ideal customer overlap there, and they felt like it was worthwhile to do a partnership. In a similar example in the same industry, there was Yego Coffee of Boston and Time and Tide, who both share the same brand values around sustainability and sourcing. So they did a discussion and talk to their not only to the industry but also to customers about how they choose to source and sustainably find and responsibly pay for coffee beans and then locally roast them to make sure that's a sustainable industry. And this is exposing a group in a different region. So in Boston, that audience to a business in Biddeford, Time and Tide, and exposing the main audience to Yego Coffee, allowing for some crossover there. And for a little bit more of a direct example of how this can be helpful when you're using an ideal customer profile or trying to put together some market research, this is something that you can use directly on social media. This is what it looks like on the back end when you're doing an ad on Meta or Facebook or Instagram. And you can see here you can enter audience, like specific audience details. And I lifted things directly from the ideal customer profile I built through my interaction with Abby. And I was able to put them directly into the audience details here. And that's going to limit the post, limit who can see the post based on these parameters, which means that those are going to be the people who are most likely to hit my ideal customer range. So the ad, every time the ad is shown, I get charged a few cents. But so that means that every time this ad is shown, it's going to be shown to the people who are most likely to make a buying decision. So every time I get charged a few cents, it's a much better return on my investment than not narrowing down the audience. As I mentioned earlier, ideal customer profiles are also very useful for traditional media platforms, being able to provide to your underwriter. Oh, and that's my last slide. Do we have any kind of questions about this topic? I know I went through that a little quickly there, but this is typically more of a question and answer kind of session than informational.
Oh, Stefan, my name's Kelsey. I'm a graphic designer for Black Rabbit Design, and I kind of am just exploring all marketing information I can get. I work in a segment of marketing, but still trying to navigate. I'm very much mostly B2B and nonprofit driven, and so I'm finding some of the traditional methods are not necessarily as targeted as I maybe could be. Do you have any advice or thoughts about something that feels like primarily I'm relying on in-person networking right now, and that's how I've made some of my best connections. Is there something else in the world that feels, you know, maybe more similar to that without being just like straightforward social media, your classic LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, so I also own a marketing business, so I kind of know exactly what you mean. Where the traditional marketing doesn't really work for the businesses that engage as traditional marketing. Uh, but in a lot of ways, they still like customers expect you to have a social media page, they expect you to have a website, etc., which obviously I understand that. So when you're doing your ideal customer profile, you're really trying to narrow down who are the best possible customers. So for a graphic design business, I'm going out on a limb here as a marketing agency owner that marketing agency owners are likely going to be the best customers for you because they're going to bring in repeat business.
Okay. Having not worked with them directly yet myself, is it fairly common that they work with freelancers?
It always depends on like the agency. Sometimes like for example, mine's a relatively small agency, but we have enough folks to where there's three of us. Um, we don't have someone who specializes in graphic design, so that's something that I could see as a whole in our
Mm,
ability to offer, right?
okay.
So if it's like a small agency or they're known to be a small agency, it's one or two people and all they really do is websites. They might be doing the back end of the websites and the and the search engine. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing a ton of graphic work that they want to do.
Hmm.
So that's how you can narrow down your ideal customer profile to really fit. These are the businesses that are most likely to bring me repeat work, and how do I find those businesses?
Okay. That echoes a lot of what I hear, so that's good. I
That makes
guess.
sense.
Make it, yeah, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think something that could be really helpful if you're comfortable doing a newsletter is like a monthly newsletter that just provides like a tip for like small agency owners on like something easy they can do graphically. And hey, if you don't want to do that yourself, you can always contact me.
Hmm. True. Okay.
That's all part of that funnel process I was talking about.
Yeah, very much more organized than I've been functioning at. So it's a new skill set I'm practicing.
Yeah, do we have any other questions or any questions about specific parts of the process here?
Hi there, I do have a question. This kind of follows on what you just talked about. So, we have several audiences, and I was wondering, how do you then talk to different people at the same time, right? Like you just talked about a newsletter for agencies. We are actually a smaller agency, and so not only do we want to partner with like website agencies. We also would like to do like event planners, just different agencies as well as direct, right? So associations, things like that. So again, the question is, how do you, how do you map out these different audiences in terms of ICP, and then also mix up the messaging to talk to, each one of them all at the same time?
Yeah, great question. I think the big thing is a lot of these different ICPs a lot of different ideal customers are going to be different ideal customers for specific product lines. So you might have a specific product line that you have or a specific service that you offer where that ideal customer like really fits into that segment. Or you might have a service where there are two or three different ideal customers for that service line, but they might have different reasons for why that service line is so good for them. So that gives you those different reasons. You can try to dig into those different areas and figure out exactly why. The why here is really critical. Figure out exactly why it is that that's helpful for them, and that lets you get those ideas for kind of how you can build on top of that, who they are as a person, because who they are as like that why is really where they're coming from, is they see a solution to a problem they have, and it's not a how, it's a why. So they're saving some time. The how is your service, but the why is because they're saving some time, they're saving some money, they don't have to worry about it, this, that, or the other, right? So
Um,
digging down into that is how you're going to figure out who they are as a person and why it is that providing that service to them is helpful. And that's how you figure out how that ideal customer profile can be helpful to reaching that person, and how you can keep those things separate and talk to those different audiences at the same time. Is you can do things like for email, it's really easy because you can have list segmentation. So you can have lists where, let's say, one list is all, digital marketing agencies, and then another list is all restaurants, if you happen to work with those two groups. And that way you can send out emails specifically to the restaurant list or specifically to the digital marketing list.
Yeah, so things like email and website, like they're a little bit easier to manage because you can do that segmentation. But when it comes to something like LinkedIn, for example, where everybody is seeing every post, so sometimes that's where it's like, okay, do we do three, back to back for this one audience, or do we mix it up, So that's where it gets a bit confusing in
Well,
terms of like content and putting things out.
that kind of comes down to like where they're at in the funnel. If you're putting people into your funnel through LinkedIn, then you probably want to do a little bit of everything all the time. You'll want to mix up, some posts for this, some posts for that, maybe one post that kind of talks about how you do all these things, and all of these different things come together for one bigger purpose where the pieces are bigger than the greater whole, for example. And then once they're in the funnel, that's when you start separating them out into things like, here's your specific landing page for that particular segment, or you get them on that newsletter list, and then that's where you want to engage with that particular audience. You don't want to keep them in that, you don't want to try to engage with them in the same place that you kind of put them into the funnel.
No, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much. That helps me
No
a great
problem.
deal. Appreciate that.
Yeah, if we have any other questions about this, or about marketing strategy, or direction in general, please let me know. I'm always happy to talk about it.
One more question for me. So I was also curious about, like, when we're thinking marketing strategy, right? Like, we're already almost midpoint in the year. What do you recommend in terms of timing? So we're, just researching our ICP, trying to reach out and stuff like that. So are we planning for, do you plan out conversions? Like, okay, we expect that, oh, we're going to engage and get some interest in like 2 to 3 months, and then conversion should happen in 3 to 6, stuff like that. Or do you just kind of leave it open and see what happens?
What industry are you in?
Oh, I'm in media. So we do like video, photos, that sort of thing. But media agency generally, yeah.
Okay, so I happen to have a little experience in that industry. I know that it can be very seasonal, and it depends on the industry that you're working with, that it can be seasonal in.
Mm.
So when you're working, for example, with a lot of the like coastal towns, you're going to get a really huge summer rush, and it's going to be pretty. In my experience, it was pretty much busy until the fall, and
Exactly.
winter can be a little lean.
Yeah.
But there are other industries that you can work with. What part of the state are you in?
We're Midwest. We're in Illinois.
Oh, Illinois. Okay. So that's, sorry, where is the usually Maine folks in this one?
Oh yeah, no, I'm in Illinois.
So you're definitely going to have different industries out there. My assumption is that there's probably still a lot of manufacturing in the Midwest. I was originally grew up in Ohio. There was a lot of manufacturing there at the
Mm,
time, including small manufacturers,
mhm,
and building out website videos for those kinds of folks who have year-round businesses. Like a factory works 365 days a year.
mm. I really like that because we were looking at doing like trucking companies, stuff like
That's a
that
great,
that
that's a really good idea.
move all the time. So I really like that suggestion too, but I hadn't thought about manufacturing. So yeah, no, I like that balance between like year round and seasonal. But yes, you are absolutely correct. It's really crazy in summer, and so it's like just trying to balance out the year for us. So thank you again. That's very helpful. Appreciate
Oh, of
that.
course. One of the things about media and graphic design and video as well is it's a very there are a lot of different applications. So, like an example of what you could a different kind of service line that you could do that's going to target a different kind of industry is how could you put together a video for a trade show booth? Those folks typically do a lot of trade shows during the winter. So, like a lot of ag trade shows are during the winter, for example, or a lot of those busy
I
summer
really
trade
like that.
shows are during the winter.
Yeah, I really like that because yeah, on that point, I mean that this is helping me just check off like we're at least on some kind of a right track because we want to do that, and then not only the trade show, but these people are busy. So just how do we repurpose that content and then help them, spread it out through the year and make the most of it, right? So one trade show can give you a lot of content for different things. So yeah, so that definitely works for me. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's also a way to, potentially sell more to your existing clientele. If, you're busy during the summer with them and they're off season, they might be doing things like trade shows. There are other ways that you might be able to provide services that are of value.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. I agree 1000%.
Yeah, throw it out there one more time. If there are any other questions that we have, more than happy. But thank you both. Thank you to both Kelsey and Lisa for the questions that you did have. I thought that was very engaging. I always love talking about that kind of stuff, so I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone for joining me today. I'll stay on for another couple of minutes for anyone who might have more questions, but I will give 20 minutes back to everyone else today. Thank you for joining us. I will send out the slide deck and a recording in a follow-up email.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Am I allowed to
Yeah.
ask what agency you work for, Dan?
Oh yeah. So I work. I'm literally rebranding today, but we're rebranding from Dan Reed Marketing to Midcoast Dreams Digital.
Mid-Coast? Mid-Coast.
Midcoast Dreams Digital.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to have the website up here in the next couple of days.
Nice. And that's what you guys primarily function with, websites, and what other services do you guys provide?
So for me personally, I largely do website, email, and social, and
Okay.
traditional marketing.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. I'll look you up. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Oh, I had one in the Q&A. My apologies, I missed this way earlier. If you're still with us, do we create just one ICP? We have more than one. I would create more than one ideal customer profile. I would create as many as you feel is necessary, but also you don't want to go so far overboard that you're trying to message to too many different groups. But if you have like one service line, having 2 or 3 ideal customer profiles per service line, I think is reasonable. If you have a few service lines, that makes sense. But starting with one and just kind of working from there is also a good start as well. All right. Have a good day, everyone.